Hey everyone, this is Klaus from Plant-Based News. So today we want to share an interview that we saw between Dr. Eduardo Crosser, a raw food nutritionist, and Freelee the Banana Girl. Let's get into it.
Are you scared of fruits? Do you think fruits or sugar would cause diabetes or weight gain or blah, blah, blah? Do you think sugar even feed cancer? So stay there until the end so we learn with somebody that eats a fruit-based diet and a lot of sugar for the last 20 years. Well, let's interview Freelee, the Banana Girl.
So just as some background, Freelee was a huge YouTuber when I started to become a passionate plant-based proponent. Actually started Plant-Based News. So she was one of the biggest advocates and very, there's a lot of vegan activism behind her message as well, but she focused her message on raw food. She's got this program called Raw Till 4, and I haven't seen her in years, and this is why this interview between this guy and her kind of sparked my attention.
And I was just suffering. I had such terrible digestion. I was seeing a gastroenterologist, which was taking like $250 for a 15-minute consultation. I got like a endoscopy, and the results came back with, you've got an inflamed gut. That's what the results came back with. And he's like, but don't worry, we have this new drug coming out. It's going to be, this is literally what he said to me. We have this new drug coming out. It's in America, but it's coming to Australia soon, and it's really going to help you. And I actually stood up and I said, I don't want any more drugs. And I walked out of the room because I was just, by that point, I had gone through Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic doctors, naturopaths, giving me all these different pills and potions, and nothing was working. And it was literally making me worse. So this gastroenterologist was also obese, and he looked like an alcoholic. Not inspiring at all. And, you know, we see this, right? We see who's giving us recommendations. You know, it makes a difference. We're like, well, I don't want the results you're getting.
I often said to my students that you should be your own billboard. You're promoting your public health action, what kind of practitioner you are. That being said, I don't want to say that you have to look a specific way to be a public health practitioner or a medical doctor or a physician of any sort. Please don't take it that way, because we know that there could be many reasons why someone may be obese. Maybe they're dealing with some autoimmune disorder. There could be many reasons why someone looks the way that they do. However, if someone looks the way that they do outside of their own control, that's one thing. But if it's because of lack of physical activity, lack of proper nutrition, not eating enough fiber, not eating enough fruits and vegetables, then we have an issue. And I think that's when we see Freelee is talking about. She's meeting a practitioner who's telling her not to heal her gut or her issues with whole food plant-based or with ways that she believes in, but with some sort of medical intervention.
Yeah, and also the fact that they just kept prescribing her more medication for a problem. That's unfortunately the kind of society and system we seem to be living in. Is it's like, instead of trying to find out what the root cause is, it's like, here's a new medication for you to have. I mean, I don't obviously know exactly what her methods were. After that, we're going to find out, I guess. But it seems better to me to try and actually figure out the root cause, whether it is food or, you know, the way you're eating or, you know, exercise or any of those things that could also be a factor. Medication's not going to solve necessarily that, is it?
Right. Lifestyle intervention is huge, right? That's why we talk about the impacts of epigenetics. How much you're exercising, what are you eating, how much social support you have, right? And if it's a job of a doctor or practitioner to really evaluate those things. But I think the way the medical system has become, it's now you've got a 15-minute appointment for $250, and it is almost just a scanning you down like at a grocery store. It's just reading another barcode. But a patient, a person is so much more than a barcode. It's so much more comprehensive. And so I'm hoping that anybody that watches this sees that you're valued. You should find a practitioner that cares about meeting with you for a prolonged period of time and really working with you on the things that matter for you.
Let's go through where Freelee talks about what she eats in a day in 2025.
Well, this is sugar water, So it actually has 4 tablespoons of sugar in it, and just like a handful of frozen berries and some lime juice squeezed in there. It's really delicious. So I'll start the day with that, and before I go for a jog or do some exercise, I actually just went for a jog. Um, I'll have some sugar water before I go, and I might have some sugar water when I come back, and then I'll have a smoothie, a banana smoothie of generally about like 7 bananas, and I'll add a couple of tablespoons of sugar and some berries and yeah, that kind of thing. Like I usually have 2 smoothies. It depends on what's available, what fruits are available during the year. If we got jackfruit, because we have heaps of jackfruit trees, but they're not fruiting at the moment. But if they are fruiting, we'll just sit down to a meal of jackfruit. Easy, right? Super easy. We love it. It's yeah, very nutritious. And then that would be my day. And then at night, I might have some. I kind of avoid the rice because I do find it is a bit it slows the digestion, quite a bit compared to some other grains. That's what I've discovered, like the white rice, especially because it's, refined and it doesn't have the fiber. But then the rice fiber is potentially a problem as well. So I kind of just stay away from that. I might cook breadfruit. Like if we're going to cook something, cook a fruit, but that doesn't always happen. Then we might end up eating just pasta, some organic pasta, or potatoes. Sweet potatoes are really good. Plantains are amazing. And yeah, that's a day of eating pretty much. And I probably have about 180 grams of sugar.
Freelee, yeah, when I started YouTube was, I think she was just on a raw food diet. So she'd just be, I can't remember exactly, this is a long time ago, maybe 9 or 10 years ago. And then she started promoting something called Raw Till 4, which is basically fruit in the day and then in the evening, starches and vegetables and legumes and grains. But it's, to be fair to her, she's been consistent with that. But yeah, what do you think?
I don't know if there's a need for so much added refined sugar. To each their own, but is it really necessary? Probably not. And I find it actually really interesting that she has a problem with white rice, but not added sugar.
But Shabnam, I think she would say, because I've watched the whole thing, she would say that the soil is more depleted now, and the fruit specifically has not got as much sugar and natural sugar in it. So just, bolster it a little bit. You don't think that's a good idea to get the levels of nutrition up to what they are naturally?
Is it kind of overkill? Probably.
How many grams of sugar do you have a day, Shabnam, on your juice cleanses?
Oh, high.
Yeah.
High. I mean,
Isn't that processed? That's processed in a way, no?
I mean, it's fruit.
I think she's saying table sugar, by the way. Like she's putting table sugar into that drink.
Table sugar. Is that what?
What's the process?
Yeah.
It's refined sugar.
It's been a very long time since I've been eating so much fruit and sugar. Sugar I've been adding to my smoothie for over 12 years. So by now you think like, right, my blood sugar would be, I'd have insulin resistance, diabetes at the very least, but I don't. And that's because sugar doesn't give you diabetes. Like Americans, for instance, they're eating less sugar. Sugar actually started to plummet like in 2000, around late 90s, 2000, because artificial sweetener took over. So artificial sweetener did a lot of marketing, bagging sugar, basically saying, oh no, artificial sweetener is better than sugar. Hey, try our artificial sweetener. And so now Americans are eating actually quite a bit less sugar. And guess what is still going up really rapidly? Diabetes, type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this on other conversations, right? It's the pattern of the high-fat animal-based diet, which is the underlying cause of type 2 diabetes. And obviously that plus sugar is what's really bad, and then sugar gets the blame.
But in the standard American diet, it is the combination of high fat, high carbohydrate, or high sugar content in meals that is leading to diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, stroke. So she's not really wrong there in that sense, because that's what we see in her diet. She has the absence of high fat in her diet, particularly saturated fat, right?
At least we had it confirmed. She says she's not pre-diabetic or diabetic, and she's been doing it for 12 years. So
good call, Sarah.
It's very confusing to me though, because it's like literally the opposite to everything I've ever been told. And kind of when we watched that sugar one last time, the snake sugar man, it was the same thing he was saying, right? He was saying it's the fat, the combination of the fat and the sugar together that is causing diabetes. It's not actually the sugar itself. But like, as a kid, you're always taught that like, if you eat too much sugar, you'll get diabetes. So I'm just like so confused.
Yeah, but where does that come from? Like, who is marketing that? Who is capitalizing off of that? And I think that's the deeper conversations that we never have is like, who's deciding this for us and why is this messaging allowed? And who's making money off of this messaging? And so these critical thinking skills are not taught usually in school, definitely not really taught in many dietetic and nutrition lectures. We're taught about macronutrients, micronutrients, responses to exercise, nutrient timing, but these are all predicated on, systems that are telling us that FDA is regulating this, the USDA is regulating this, this is safe to eat, this is not safe to eat, this is how it should be labeled. There is so much complexity that goes into determining what we classify as food. That's the deeper issue. Like, what's food to Freelee is what she picks off the tree or pulls out of the ground.
She's done loads of cool videos in the last few years about living off grid. I hadn't checked out her channel in ages, but she's got loads of viral videos about how she's lived off the grid the last few years. It's just a really interesting personality, because I remember when we started Plant-Based News so many years ago, she was just constantly talking about, carb up, sugar up. So she really captivated an audience of people. I think it's that pendulum swinging, right? It's like for so many decades, it was sugar's really bad. And she was kind of like, hold on a second, I'm going to go the other way and look at my blood work. It's still fine. We've not got diabetes. It's clearly the fat, right? So she's clearly trying to make a point, I think. And
she's clearly, not overweight or anything like that. Like, she looks pretty much the same, Klaus, right, as what she looked before, and she's been doing that now, what she said, for 12 years.
That's right.
But what do you tell me about the main pitfalls that people have in a raw food diet, or that you had, and that people can avoid, like, with your knowledge?
I think the number one that I have identified is being undereating. That's number one. Undereating and eating fruit that is not good enough quality. They're eating supermarket bananas and they're just not getting the sucrose. And for those who don't understand what sucrose is, it's glucose and fructose, fruit sugar together. These two molecules, and they make sucrose. It's a disaccharide, it's two sugar molecules, and it breaks down into glucose and fructose in your body. It's the perfect fuel, like the body efficiently processes it, no problem. And this is what I see with raw foodists a lot. Like, if I was to do a frugivore all raw food diet again, I would incorporate sugar into it. And I think it will be the best diet in the world, because then you're bringing the fruit back to the quality that it should be, and you're getting enough sucrose in your body. And I just, over the years, have seen so many fruitarians and, fruit-based eaters failing because they're just not meeting their basic needs.
So how people say if you go vegan, you've got to basically take vegan protein shake, but it's not true, but it's what people think. Maybe Freelee thinks if you go raw, you need to just supplement with sugar to get the calories in.
That seems to be her kind of suggestion, but that's what you were saying before, right? Is that she's saying that the quality of the fruit that people are getting means that they need to supplement with sugar to get it to where it would have been. Because, like, I'm only eating supermarket fruit. That's literally where I can get it from. I'm not getting it from the tree.
So there are things that I have questions about, because I think that what she's saying is missing information.
If you want some extra sugar, just have a couple dates. Just some, if the bananas you're having, supermarket bananas, and just put some dates in. Put a couple dates. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'll get a good amount of sugar. You can surely get enough sugar from dates. Surely.
Well, you would think.
Here's what I think she's saying, right? She's, I think, saying a lot of people undercarb at the moment, so especially people that go vegan, they maybe get hungry and they're just smashing in the tofu and the vegan meat, and they're like, oh, why am I hungry? I'm hungry because I haven't had enough vegan protein. So smashing in the tempeh and all of these products. And she's like, whoa, you just need more fruit. And if you want a bit more energy, just instead of having like a big banana smoothie, just top it up with a bit of sugar, just because you're not getting enough carbohydrate generally. That's what I think she's saying.
Yeah, I think that is what she's saying, but also it does seem like the only thing she eats is fruits and sugar. So like, it's not like she's also eating tempeh and tofu and like all the other things. I think that is legitimately all she is eating is the sugar water, the fruits, the jackfruit. She said a little bit of grains maybe, which is maybe new from what she did 10 years ago, Klaus, but I think she is literally just eating that.
Freelee does not see her diet as restrictive. This is her lifestyle. She is a fruitarian. She doesn't have any adverse health effects. Her experience, her anecdotal experience has been this. Now, the empirical evidence that we see in longitudinal research, that we see the impacts of high sugar diets can have negative impacts on blood glucose metabolism with certain populations of folks. Not all. We've also seen that high sugar diets, for example, in Kempner's observational rice study in the 1930s, has really great benefits for, say, type 2 diabetics or people that were living with hypertension. It really depends. What we saw is that an elimination, taking away a particular macronutrient, will have an impact on anybody. We're going to start to see some sort of change from that stimulus. Now, can you adhere to it long term? That's a question. What are the impacts long term? We're seeing that with Freelee. She's okay. But I still haven't seen her blood work. I haven't seen her metabolic panel. There are many things that I'd have questions about. I also want to look at her lifestyle activity. I want to see what else is she actually eating throughout the day. I want to see what percentage of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins is she getting in her diet. Because we know that there is protein in fruits and vegetables. So if she's eating copious amounts of things, she's probably still getting some element of, say, 10% of her diet is protein. Well, in an acceptable macronutrient distribution range, if she has anywhere between 10 to 35% of her calories coming from protein, she's doing pretty okay.
Yeah, I think the other part of this argument, which you did slightly touch on, Shabnam, is accessibility, because it's well and good for Freelee to be able to walk out to a tree and get her fruit. But most of us are living in urban environments where that's just not possible. You know, if it's just a local supermarket, like a Tesco or whatever it is we have in the UK, you're getting whatever they have, and you're not going to be able to
top up with the table sugar.
I'll top up with the table sugar.
But isn't that processed as well? So that's what I'm talking about.
I see.
Like,
yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No,
like, that's why I asked. Is she like going out into her farm, pulling out cane sugar? Like,
no,
I'm from
no.
Bangladesh.
No,
like,
she's not doing that.
She used to walk, and my dad would snap a cane sugar off of the, like, when we go on a walk, and I would just chew on it.
Love it.
You know, and jackfruit is the national fruit of Bangladesh. Here in Vegas, I go to the grocery store and I get it canned.
Yes, exactly.
That's the closest I'm going to get. So accessibility is a huge aspect of this.
Yeah, it's not going to be the same, is it? It's not going to be the same for every person. So if she's marketing this to people as like something you can also do, you can't really do it in the same way, can you?
Humans are like bees. You know what I mean? Like, we're basically making our own form of honey with sugar. You know, the bees are taking the nectar and they're creating the honey, and we are basically extracting the sugar out of the, you know, the sugar beets and the sugar cane, and we're making our own honey, our own form of honey. You know, we're like bees.
I think she's saying that we've got magnetism towards high carbohydrate diets.
Yeah.
How much you got out of it?
I
kind of got, what I got out of it is like, oh, we naturally are inclined to process and create sugar for function. That's kind of what I got out of it, was like, it's our natural instinct to take some sort of source and turn it into sugar for consumption.
She said when she was a child, she used to sneak into the cupboard and get icing sugar and put it in a cup and mix it with like fruit juice or something, and then just eat it from the cup. Because she was saying like that is what made her think that she was like a bee, like it was just natural for her to just want sugar, like from a young age. I'm not sure.
I've got sympathy for her message, and I think she's being a bit misunderstood. I think it's that pendulum swinging the other way too far. She'd been burnt for decades by this sort of high protein animal based thing, and like the snake diet guy we talked about last week or last month, she's basically just saying, actually, you know, table sugar is probably, it's not optimal, and fruit is, and she promotes raw till 4. So fruit in the day, and then vegetables and grains and legumes and stuff at night. That's not that far off kind of like a whole food plant-based, except she's just saying to make a point, I think, put some sugar in. And the reason that I've got sympathy for her is because I made a video a few years ago about fad diets, to talk about the dangers of like extended fasting and lots of different things. And this, her Raw Till 4 program was included in that. So we did this big edit where I had a script, and I was like, oh my God, haha, Freelee, she's done some Raw Till 4 thing. And she emailed me after, and she's like, dude, I've tried so hard about this message. Trust me, I've like for the last 15 years, I've seen it myself. You know, I've been like making videos, I've been coaching people, really like women, like really struggling with their weight, going into early 20s. And this message, Klaus, of like high protein, high fat is killing people. And what I'm showing them is the other ways, like really, really helping them. I know it's a bit out there, but trust me. And I was like, you know what? I really respect your email, and like looking at some of the stuff that you're putting out, off-grid living, and you know, some of the vegan advocacy where she's recommending animal rights activists and stuff. I was like, fair play. Like clearly you've grown an audience somehow. It's certainly much better than the standard American diet. So I pulled the video, apologized, and that's kind of why like I've got a bit of like sympathy. I think often her message is grossly misunderstood.
I don't disagree with Freelee here. And I want to make this very clear that in my own practice, I intermittent fast. And then the first thing that I have in the morning between 8 a.m. to 12 is only fruit. I will wake up and I start with melons. If you read Fit for Life, by the way, this book by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond talks very strongly about food combinations. And so technically, you start with melons first, because if you combine them with other subacidic or high acidic fruits, they can give you gas and bring you discomfort. So have some melons on an empty stomach. 30 minutes later, then I have a mix of other fruits. I'll have berries and strawberries and blueberries and maybe some oranges, potentially bananas if I'm going to go exercise, because I like to have a denser fruit that gives me more energy if I'm going to actually go exercise later in the morning. And then when I come back, guess what I have? Smoothie, sugar, immediately, with copious amounts of fruits. And I hate protein. I hate the texture of plant protein. Please, God, I'm so sorry for all the people that have sent me plant protein. I no longer really consume it. I don't like the texture. I don't like the taste. I just have my fruit smoothie. And after I have that for about 45 minutes, then between the hours of 12 and 4 is when I actually shift into whole food plant-based. So now I'm looking at more vegetables, but I still eat some fruits involved in that. It's after 4 o'clock is when I actually have a lot more dense carbohydrates, like my rices or my quinoa. And so Freelee's not really far away from how I do my life either. I find to eat more heavy proteins and carbohydrates later on in my day, and very fruit intensive early on in the day, because it not only helps with hydration, digestion, and elimination, things that we should really be focusing on at the early onset. And it gives me exceptional amounts of energy and focus. And so I think Freelee has a great message. I think it is a bit extreme with then adding the table sugar and then being raw. A fruitarian is something where a lot of people go, I don't know if I can do that, right? It just seems almost unachievable, unobtainable in a lifestyle for many people. And that's where I think the judgment comes.
It's a sort of like alienation vibe, isn't it? People just feel like if it's too unattainable, they're not going to start. And I think maybe that's where the argument slightly falls on, that and the table sugar potentially.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it is working for people, like you said, Klaus, if she's saying like it is really working for people, that is great for those people. But like Shabnam said, it can't just be like a blanket, this works for everyone, because it might not, depending on where you live, depending on what kind of quality you can get, all that kind of stuff. So,
but let's be honest, what Freelee is asking people to do is to eliminate ultra processed foods. We saw this with Simon Hill. You know, standard American diet is 70% ultra processed foods. Anytime anybody goes to a particular diet, carnivore, vegan, fruitarian, we're eliminating that 70% of intake of UPFs, which we have seen in clinical evidence to impact our health negatively: cardiovascular disease, stroke, heart disease, diabetes, right? So what she's emphasizing is just another way to remove these really harmful elements out of our diet, right? It is a bit extreme. And I think people that only eat those particular types of foods would find that to be unattainable. But in Freelee's mind, the way the standard American diet is too much. It's dangerous. And she's not wrong there either.
Yeah, for sure.
Take her with a tablespoon of sugar, folks.
You know, there was people like Matt Monarch and David Wolf. You know, I just felt like these guys are in it for the money. You know, these guys are in it for the money. And with Doug, he didn't have any supplements to push on me or anything like that. He just had his one book at that time, and I was like, damn, this is the truth. This is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. I felt like some proponents of raw fooders were they seem like crooks, you know, like I couldn't, you know, like actually correlate with them, you know.
Yeah.
But you know,
yeah,
it
yeah.
is what
I'm
it is.
happy to drop names too. Lou Corona, fraud.
I don't know the scene that well to make more comments.
The global supplement industry is valued at over $177 billion.
Wow.
What does that tell you, folks? And people are here to make money. That the U.S. supplement industry is approximately, I think, about $60 billion as of like 2023. And so I always encourage people to do their due diligence, to do their research. What are people trying to sell you here? Freelee is right. She's tired of buying the pills. She's tired of buying the drink packets. She's tired of being sold something that you don't need.
But like, I guess like at least to an extent, I will like do research to make sure like, so I do take some supplements like multivitamin and B12 and stuff like that. But like, I just get the things that I know I need.
But that's what I think about shampoo, conditioner, and shower gel. I'm sure if you read the ingredients, they're the same, basically. So why do you need all three? Just like, is that similar to what you're saying?
Guys, you're not saying that you use conditioner or shampoo to wash your body, are you?
I'm saying this. What do I use? I use Head and Shoulders. However, when I am in the pool and I've only got the conditioner, what I tell myself is when you look at the ingredients, it's not the end of the day, because the same thing is in shower gels. It's basically doing the same job, but it's marketed as this thing that you need to take. But actually go back to basics, go back to the ingredients, and you get what you need from the conditioner.
I would agree with like using conditioner. You could use it in the place of shampoo. No. If you really needed to. Wait. For a one-off, Shabnam, he's saying if he comes out of the pool and he only had one thing, you could use a conditioner in the place of a shampoo for a one-off.
Conditioner does not clean your hair, folks. No. Shampoo cleans, condition makes it smooth. They are not the same.
Circling back to the point of this, I think we should invite Freelee onto the show. I'd love to interview her.
I'd love that. Just to hear her experiences. And I'd also really want to take into account her activities of daily living. Like, is she actively farming throughout the day? Like, is she on top of her exercise? What is she doing? Because if that's the case, and she's expending so much energy, whereas I sit at a desk a majority of my day and do my work. So I would need less carbohydrate or sugar intake for daily function. These are all variables that we need to discuss before everyone is making judgments about Freelee's lifestyle.
You know, a lot of us wish we could have that lifestyle that she has, right? Living out there, just taking fruit from the trees, like that would be amazing. And if I did have that life, I probably would eat a lot more fruit, to be fair. So.
And just lastly, I'll say when you are in a lifestyle pattern where you're doing loads of exercise, I've noticed it myself. I become preachy about it without realizing quite how different it is from most sedentary people. So I'm just doing like 5-10 hours a week of tennis or swimming or whatever, and you just say, oh yeah, I do a bit of exercise every day, but it's like that is a very different lifestyle to what most people are living. And I think when you're in that really healthy routine, you kind of assume that other people are doing it as well, but they're really not.
Yeah, because I think the majority of the people are just trying to make ends meet and trying to, like, you know, somebody could be working like 2 or 3 jobs, just trying to make enough money to even get the fruit from the supermarket, which is like the cheapest fruit you can get, you know? Like they're not going to really have the ability to like exercise all the time or have free time or like be able to find organic fruits, just like whatever there is, back to that accessibility point. And I think we need to be mindful of that when we're sort of talking about all these, you know, lifestyles, etc. It's like, it's just not possible for some people. So
Yeah, but my main message is don't fear sugar. You know, I've been promoting a fruit-based diet for like nearly 20 years. And I feel like now the best use of my time now is to help people not fear sugar, because there is a lot of propaganda put out by meat and dairy industry, a lot of actual, just a lot of lies about sugar. And I'm trying to help people realize that sugar is fine. Sugar is absolutely fine. It's context that matters. If you're having it in a high-fat diet, it can stay elevated in your bloodstream, yes, because of the fat, because of this lipotoxicity, because of the fats in the cell, basically. So the sugar is not getting across. The insulin cannot help that sugar get across properly into the cell. So if you're having too much fat, you might have some problems. Just remove the excess fat and increase the sugar in your diet and your life will change, I promise. I'm offering like a long-term sustainable option that can improve your health beyond what you would ever believe, and you can get in the best shape of your life.
Well, that's a damn good message. You know, we talk about insulin resistance so heavily about sugar content, but not really talking about fat content. She couldn't have said it better. So good job, Freelee.